Welcome to today's lesson on converting minutes and hours. Let's say you have a certain number of minutes, but you want to know how many hours is in that certain amount. Well, that's what we're going to be working on today. Let's go ahead and get started. We are going to begin today using the fraction bar below. Let's say you're going to the movies, and the movie that you want to see is 122 minutes long. You want to know how many hours you're going to be watching that movie. Well, our first step is to figure out how many minutes are in an hour. In an hour, you have 60 minutes. So in order to start this problem, we need to divide our fraction bar by 60 minutes or into 1 hour blocks. So let's go ahead and divide up our fraction bar. Our first block that you can see right here is going to represent 60 minutes. And beneath it, I'm going to write 1 hour so that we can remember that our first block of time, or first 60-minute increment, is representing 1 hour's worth of time. We have another 60-minute block of time right here, which represents a second hour. Now, 60 minutes plus 60 minutes equals 120 minutes. But our movie is 122 minutes. So our last little sliver of time over here is going to represent 2 additional minutes. This is going to be our remainder. So in 122 minutes that we have represented here, it is a value of 2 hours and 2 minutes worth of time. Now, as you can see, we used a fraction bar to divide 122 minutes by 60 to tell us how many hours we have in our fraction bar. But you can also use long division instead of using a visual. Let's see how that works. I'm going to set up my problem, 122 minutes, and we're going to divide it by 60 minutes in an hour. And this is going to tell us how many hours we're going to be watching this movie. So 60 cannot go into 1, so I'm going to put a 0 as a placeholder. 60 cannot go into 12, so I'm going to put a 0 as a placeholder and move to my next place value. 60 can go into 122 2 times. 60 times 2 equals 120. Now, as you can see, our 2 represents our 2 hours that we blocked out on our fraction bar. And our 120 minutes is 60 minutes plus 60 minutes, which is 120 minutes. Now, when we subtract down, it gives us a remainder of 2. And this remainder is going to represent our remainder that we had on our fraction bar as well. So 122 divided by 60 gives us 2 hours with a remainder of 2 minutes, just like we got when we used our fraction bar. Let's go through a word problem together. Jessa is given a timed test at school. The teacher tells her that she has 95 minutes to complete the test. How many hours and minutes does she have? Well, if she has 95 minutes, that's our starting point. So we're going to take 95 minutes, and we need to divide those minutes by how many minutes are in an hour. We have 60 minutes in an hour, so that's what we're going to be dividing by. 60 cannot go into 9, so I'm going to put a 0 here as a placeholder and move on to our next place value. 60 can go into 95 only 1 time. 60 times 1 equals 60. When we subtract down, that gives us a remainder of 35. So we know that in 95 minutes, we have 1 hour, and our remainder is 35 minutes. So that means that Jessa has 1 hour and 35 minutes to complete her test. Let's try another word problem. Melissa's soccer practice lasts 2 hours and 12 minutes. How many minutes did Melissa play in all? Well, let's write down the information we know. We know that she played for 2 hours and 12 minutes. So we need to convert this into minutes. First, we need to multiply how many hours she played by how many minutes are in an hour. So 2 times 60 equals 120. Now we need to add our remainder, or how many minutes she played extra. So we're going to add 12 minutes. 120 plus 12 equals 132. So that means that Melissa played 132 minutes in all. Let's try another word problem. Jack is taking a trip to the city. His parents tell him that the city is 327 minutes away. How many hours and minutes will it take Jack to reach the city? Well, we know that we're going to be starting with 327 minutes. And we need to divide 327 minutes by 60 minutes in an hour if we want to find out how many hours and minutes it's going to take. Are you ready? Let's go. Step 1. How many times can 60 go into 3? Well, 60 can't go into 3, so we're going to put a 0 as a placeholder and move to our next digit. 60 still can't go into 32, so we need to put another 0 as a placeholder and move to our next digit. How many times can 60 go into 327? We might have to try a few different numbers first. 60 times 4. 4 times 0 is 0. 6 times 4 is 24. I bet we can get closer than that. Let's try 60 times 5. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 6 equals 30. All right, so 300 is going to be our closest number, because if we went up to 6, we'd have 360, and that would be too much. So we know that 60 can go into 327 5 times, and 60 times 5 equals 300. When we subtract down, that gives us a remainder of 27. So we know that in 327 minutes, if we break it into hours and minutes, we have 5 hours and 27 minutes. So it will take Jack 5 hours and 27 minutes to reach the city. Let's review what you've learned in today's lesson. When you're trying to convert minutes into hours, you need to divide by the number of minutes that are in an hour, which is 60. So let's say we have 258 minutes, and we want to know how many hours and minutes that is. We need to divide by 60. Our first step is seeing how many times 60 can go into the number 2. Since it can't, we put a 0 as a placeholder and move to our next digit. Since 60 still can't go into 25, we put a 0 as a placeholder and move on to our next digit. 60 can go into 258 4 times. 60 times 4 equals 240. And when we subtract down, that gives us a remainder of 18. So 258 minutes is equal to 4 hours and 18 minutes.